Hey legends, welcome along to a new episode of Hellmouth Hotline. It has been far too long since I got an episode out for you, but here we are. We're back again with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Season 2, Episode 3. This episode is called School Hard. Now, for me, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, love the entire run of the series, but Season 2 is where it really kicked off, and Episode 3 is the episode when we finally get introduced to Spike and Drusilla. Such a good episode. Interestingly enough, I've been listening to some other podcasts based around science fiction and whatnot, and it turns out that when Spike was originally introduced into the series, he was not going to be kept on as long as what he ended up being. He was meant to be just one of these seasonal hard men, and the original plan was to kill him off by the end of the season. But of course, as we all know, Spike was such a hit with the fans that they kept him on, and a great decision to do that. James Marsters plays an insanely good vampire and Spike, and Juliet Landau as Drusilla is amazing. Like, she is so good in this role. But throughout the most of this season, she's very weak vampire. When they turn up, we discover that they were almost killed by a mob prior to their arrival in Sunnydale, so she is recovering, trying to get her strength back for a good part of it. But she has the gift of sight, which we'll get into a little bit later on. And interestingly enough, Juliet Landau, I have just been watching another series on DVD. If you've never heard of it, I'm going to be delving into that in my other podcast, Sceam Me Up, Botty. At some point, that podcast is a Star Trek podcast, but I'm going to be delving into a lot of other science fiction in that one. And the two main actors in that, Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, are actually Juliet Landau's parents. So yes, that's pretty cool. Whenever you've watched a series for the entire run, and then a series you've always known about but never actually got a chance to getting into it, you sit down to watch it and discover that, out of two fantastic shows, the daughter of these two actually ended up in a vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Juliet Landau is now doing some amazing stuff in the world of vampire movies. She just released an independent film called A Place Among the Dead, so whenever I get a chance to actually see it properly, we'll talk about that on here as well. Buffy the Vampire Slayer inspired podcast, of course, we would have to do that. And yes, plus the legend that she is, Juliet Landau, is actually following me on Twitter, so that is my little claim to fame. But anyway, in School Hard, episode 3 of season 2. The story is by Josh Whedon, of course, and David Greenwald, who would go on to helm the Angel series. It was directed by John T. Tretchmeyer. This is the second and final episode he directed of the show. The narrative intertwines two stories, one of Spike and Drusilla, legendary vampires from Angel's past, coming to Sunnydale, and Buffy's attempts to keep her mother and Principal Snyder from meeting at parent-teacher night. She has to organise it. Unfortunately for her, Spike chooses to attack on the night of the parent-teacher meeting, which he kind of jumps the gun in this one here. If he had of, when you go by the plot of the episode, Miss Calendar works out that there's a vampire ritual coming up, the night of Saint Vegas, I want to say, and on this night, this Saturday, they're going to be the vampires are going to be at the height of their power, and if Spike waited till then, there's a chance he could have beaten Buffy in this episode, but he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. But it is so good. This is such a good introduction to Spike in this series. Like, he plays it so flippin' well. At the beginning of the episode, Buffy and another student, Sheila, they're made to prepare the school lounge for parent-teacher night. Principal Snyder, he's considering expelling both of them, but if they do a good job at the parent-teacher night, he won't. The new pair of vampires turn up in the town, Spike and Drusilla, and Spike promises the anointed one that he will kill Buffy, and we discover that in the past he has already killed 2 Slayers. Giles and Miss Calendar show up to inform Buffy that Saturday will be the night of St. Vegas. I did get that right. Named after the leader of a vampire crusade, and that during that night the natural abilities of vampires will be enhanced. Spike tells Buffy that he will kill her on Saturday. He sets her up at the bronze with another vampire to attack her, and he's in the shadows taking it all on. He's very, very, very smart whenever he's lining up to kill someone at Buffy's level. He'll send someone in first, and he will learn her moves, her abilities and whatnot, so whenever he finally faces off with her, he'll have an even footing. He'll have her worked out. Later on in the episodes, Spike kidnaps and brings Sheila, who's enthralled by his bad boy charms, to the weak Drusilla, who feeds on and kills her, apparently, but she does turn up later in the episode as a vampire. Drusilla turned her, and she almost gets a kill attack on Buffy, but Buffy manages to get out of that situation before facing down with Spike at the end of the episode. The most interesting part for me in this episode, I have to say, is the meeting between Angel and Spike. Now, I haven't watched the Angel series and probably at this point, it must be at least 15 years since I seen, well, maybe not 15 years, 12 anyway at this point, since I have seen a proper viewing of the Angel series. But I do have them on VHS here, right enough. But if memory serves, there's a lot of flashbacks in the Angel series that shows Angel's past. And in School Hard here, Spike refers to Angel as his sire, which means that Angel was the one that turned Spike originally. But if memory serves, and I could be off with this one, so if I am, forgive me. If memory serves, I think Angel turned Drusilla because Drusilla, before she became a vampire, had the sight. She was able to foresee things. She was brought up in a heavily religious background, kind of persecuted in life because of her abilities, which seemed unnatural, and she was almost insane because of this. And Angel thought, or Angelus thought, that it would be a perfect evil thing to do, to, instead of just killing this girl off, turn her into a vampire and just let her be insane for the rest of history. And again, if memory serves, I think Drusilla was the one that found Spike and turned him. So I suppose, in a way, even though Angel didn't physically turn Spike, but he turned Drusilla, who in turn turned Spike. You could say that he was his sire, but details. Do you know what I mean? It's all entertainment at the end of the day. It's good stuff. On the Thursday night, the Scooby Gang, they're making weapons in the library where Buffy is preparing the buffet. She fails to keep Schneider from meeting her mother. Afterwards, a stern Joyce orders Buffy home, just as Spike and the other vampires crash through the window. In the ensuing fight, Buffy leads the adults to safety in the science room. Xander is set to fetch Angel. This is when we discover all this stuff about Spike and him being connected. Buffy takes command of the adults, telling them to stay put, climbs through the air ducts to reach the library and her weapons. Buffy's location in the ceiling is discovered when Spike hears noises, and she has to avoid strikes made by the vampires to knock her down. After taking out the vampires trying to break into the science room, she runs into Sheila, who's now a vampire, of course. I've already covered that. At first, Buffy doesn't realise this, but she's able to thwart Sheila's attempt to ambush her, thanks to Giles. He pops out and goes, "Look out! Watch your back!" I skipped way back in the episode. Buffy and Spike finally meet in the hallway of the school and fight. Spike seemingly has Buffy beaten and is about to kill her, and he is literally just about to go in for the kill. And at the end of the episode, when Buffy's mother shows up and hits Spike over the head with the flat of an axe, "Get your hands off my daughter," sort of deal. And Spike is like, "Woman," jumps up and runs. An interesting part at the end of this episode where Snyder tells the police chief to say that the trouble was caused by a gang on PCP. When the chief wonders if people will believe it, Snyder asks if the chief would rather that he tell the truth. So, throughout season 1 and the first couple of episodes of season 2, we had Buffy and Giles, Slayer and Watcher, working in private, keeping her identity secret, and it always seemed like they were the only ones that knew about all this stuff going on here. But now, at the end of this episode, we see the principal of the high school and the police chief in Sunnydale, pretty much confirming that this is common knowledge and the higher ups of the city. We get a nice little end with Buffy and Joyce, am I in trouble sort of a deal. Joyce is kind of like, you were in serious trouble there, but tonight, I was told that you're nothing but a troublemaker by the principal, and you were in trouble, but now I've seen tonight that I've got a daughter that's strong and can look after herself, and she's good in a situation, and doesn't matter what sort of teenage nonsense you get up to, as long as I know that you're as level-headed as I seen tonight, I can sleep a lot better. At the end of the episode, I thought this was a brilliant ending to this episode. Spike returns to the vampire lair, where the Anointed One demands penance for his failure. Now, it's been no secret in my chats and reviews in Buffy the Vampire Slayer that I have found this little guy to be incredibly annoying. And Spike does go down on a knee and offers penance slightly, and then starts laughing. If I could do it all again, I would do it exactly the same way. And from here on, we're going to have a bit of fun in here. And he grabs the Anointed One, chucks him into a cage which is connected to a chain, and he pulls on the chain, lifts this cage up to the sunlight coming through the side of the building, and fries the Anointed One, killing him stone dead. And like Spike has taken over as the big main baddie at the end of this episode. Absolutely fantastic ending. Brilliant episode. And yes, for me, season 2 is where it really kicked off for vampires. For Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'll see you in a couple of days for another review. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.